Hello everyone, Helen from Mindful Me again. Looking forward to speaking with you tonight about the things that we're offering in our community, to greet you and to invite you to join with us tonight in meeting another member of our team. So I'll be very happy to have Lynnette join us tonight. It's always interesting when we first begin to make sure that all of the technology works. I'm very happy to see you all joining us. How lovely. So nice to know that our community is out there. Oh, and here is Lynnette.
Hello, love.
Hello, Lynnette. How are you?
I'm great, love. How are you doing?
Isn't this an interesting thing to do? I bet you love the idea that I've invited you to do this.
I am delighted I get to learn something new.
Yeah, that's what I felt like too when it first began. I didn't even know what Instagram was until a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I'm with you.
You see that Christy has just joined us. Can you see that on the screen as
Oh,
well?
hey, love.
That's nice, so nice. Have our team all sitting here in this untogether kind of way. Oh, so Lynnette, it's so nice that you could come and join with us tonight. I'm really looking forward to introducing you to our community. I want to say to those of you who haven't actually met with Lynnette before, I'm delighted to invite her to be here. And those of you who know will probably have experienced Lynnette on one of our Mindful Me retreats, where for some years now, Lynnette has been our yoga teacher. That's one of the strings in your bow, isn't it?
One. Yeah, definitely one.
And also, you're renowned in our community for the way that you teach us journaling. We love that.
Yeah,
So
it's a
why don't you
gorgeous.
tell us a bit about yourself, about some of the things that you've been learning, some of the training that you've done before you became part of the Mindful Me team?
Oh, well, thanks, Helen. I love to talk about what I train in. So hi, everyone. I'm Lynnette. I'm so happy to be here. My very first Instagram post is an Instagram Live, so I'm quite chuffed. And I've lived in Dubai for 6 years. I came here to be a librarian for a university, and um, in moving here, I was able to really follow a lot of loves that I've had. I've been a massage therapist uh, for many, many years. For 25 years, I licensed in Hawaii. And ever since then, I've been very interested in somatics and attachment theory and the whole nervous system and why we do what we do. So I have been training and transforming the experience-based brain with Stephan Terrell, which is just a gorgeous somatic healing. They all kind of are the same thing, but they have different pieces. So I've trained with Diane Poole-Heller in dynamic attachment repair, which is more about attachment and our attachment styles and why they're so important when it comes to healing. I'm a mindful self-compassion teacher and trained with Chris Germer to do that. And then Deidre Fay, who, if you do not know her, she is stunning, and she does a training called Safely Embodied, and I've trained with her several times. So you might have noticed all of my training has to do with the body and has to do with attachment systems. And that's really where my love is. That's where I love I love helping people understand that everything that they do has a reason, and that a lot of the things that we think are our weaknesses are actually our most enormous strengths. They've just been given the wrong job. And so when we can slip down into our body and kind of uncouple it from the work it's not supposed to be doing, it just frees up all of this energy for what that piece of you was really supposed to be doing prior to having defenses. Yeah.
So, you know, I love to hear you talk about what you've trained in. So this is the great delight that adds the depth and the diversity to our team, isn't it? The fact that we all come from somewhere different in the world and we all have training in different ways. So Lynnette, just in case anyone doesn't understand, can you explain what the word somatic means, please?
Yeah, it's just kind of a many syllabled word that just means to be with the body and to be within the body. Often when we're under duress, or perhaps we've had a little bit of trauma in our childhoods or even in our adulthoods, sometimes we can move so quickly up into these enormous, gorgeous brains, right? These little problem solvers, tickety-boo logical brains, that we scuttle away the body. And so somatic just means to be with the body, to stay with ourselves completely in our body, in our mind, in our experience. And so that's what somatic means. It's just a fancy dancy word for body.
So when you think about the fact that Mindful Me is about mindfulness, then mindfulness and our bodies, we talk it and we teach it. We use our body as the anchor into the present moment, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We do. Our bodies are gorgeous anchors. They also can feel very unsafe for a lot of people who maybe, again, have had little dicey experiences in the past. And the fascinating thing about trauma, and when we talk about trauma, let's just say trauma is anything that we've experienced that was just too much, too fast, and we didn't have a container of safety, a community or an external source to help us process it. And so when we have endured trauma, often it's hard to be mindful and it's hard to be embodied. It's hard to stay in our bodies. And the fascinating thing about mindfulness is it is the antidote to trauma. It's the antidote to stress, which is fascinating because we're all worldwide for the first time in any of our lives. We're all sitting in a worldwide pandemic. And the antidote is to find our way back to ourselves is through presence and awareness and curiosity, which is all mindfulness. So they hold hands, don't they? You know, often we think of mindfulness as this spiritual thing, or we just kind of abandon the body and the corporeal and the material, and you know, we go and sit on a mountain somewhere. But really, mindfulness is to be embodied, to stay with. Yeah,
Yeah,
so I love that.
I love that too. And I think of over these last months how many people have had a kind of a dual experience with that. It's been my experience that I'm either talking with someone who has discovered because of the pandemic that they've arrived in their body, or because of the pandemic that they've left their body.
Yeah.
Has that been your experience too, do you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. This is all a practice, and it's a practice for me as well. Even though I have been studying, and I've studied with some of the most amazing people, looking at you, Helen, one of my most gorgeous teachers. This pandemic, I did my attachment system was on full display when this pandemic started. I really struggled, and I went right into my mind and abandoned my body. And it was fascinating. It's so fascinating. And if we've had so many different experiences, as many people who are watching this have each had an experience of this. And every single experience has been our attachment system, our relationship with ourself, a real piece of information about how we feel in the world. And so, I've had both those experiences. That when it first started, I was gone, long gone. And then as I was able to breathe and come back, then I was able to return to my body. Yeah.
Can you, while you're saying that, I'm thinking of the people who are watching and listening, so that they've got some helpful takeaways from our conversation. Will you speak a little bit more, please, about attachment style and what attachment style actually means in this kind of conversation? It's the thing I often find people don't understand about, and I find I'm teaching about it a lot.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous thing. It's a gorgeous thing to know. So attachment style, when we are born, we are unshelled. We are one of the mammals that have the longest dependency upon our caregivers. We absolutely are utterly reliant. For almost decades, we are utterly reliant on those around us. And there's lots of reasons for this. One of the reasons is we do have these great enormous brains, right? So we can't come fully baked. So a lot of our wiring is still happening after we're born. And a huge piece of that wiring is the attachment, the bonding that we have. And if you think about, you can't really see me, but if you pretend you're holding a baby, and for those of you who've been to Helen's workshops, you'll often see her say, give it a cuddle, and hold it like this. This distance between where a baby's eyes would be and where the caregiver's eyes would be is the perfect distance for bonding, for connecting, for tending to one another. And it truly is symbiotic. You know, the baby's not a tabula rasa. It doesn't come out just blank. It does come out with a wiring, its own system. And those of you who have children, who have more than one children, and each one turns out completely different, you're aware of that, right? So the attachment system is this relationship that we have, not just with our mothers, but with any caregivers who can create a little container of security and safety. So you hear about secure attachment. That meant you got enough of the good stuff that you feel secure in the world, that things don't maybe topple you. But some of us didn't maybe get a whole bunch of the good stuff. We just got maybe a little bit. And what that does to our systems is when we're babies and maybe our caregivers can't attune to us, they may love us dearly, but there may be other things going on. There may be a war. We may be refugees. There may be some addiction problems in the family. Perhaps we were born into a family that has a lot of intergenerational trauma and they haven't tended it to themselves, so they can't really tend to you. Then what happens is that it puts little dinks and dents in our ability to connect. And basically our attachment systems are the defenses that we were able to create when we were too little to know we were creating them. It's all at a nervous system level. We have no control over it. And so that's really where our attachment system comes from. And then we live out that attachment system, often not knowing that we're doing it. And how that could possibly show up is in our own addictions. It could show up in an unkind voice in our head. It could show up in repeatedly dating people who maybe don't have our best interest in mind. Your attachment system will show up full force when you have children. It will be on utter display. So really, our attachment system is just this gorgeous thing that we have that is a signal to how safe we feel in the world. But the true beauty of it is, research has shown over and over and over that we can heal. We can heal even when we're adults. But it's an inside job. Yeah. And it's not necessarily easy, but when we do it in community, which is what we were meant to do, right? When we're born into community. We're desperate. We need community. We can't survive. A child can't survive without community. And we're seeing that now with this social and physical distancing, you know? But with proper community, with a loving, kind, generous nest to rest in, nothing is insurmountable. Truly nothing.
And to that end, and thank you for that delicious definition, beautifully of attachment. I'm sure that people understand better. I'm often thinking, actually, teaching in relationship works, or how many people don't seem to understand. And I often think how sad it is that we partner up with people without even realizing that it's a bit like a warrant of fitness. It would be really good if we each knew that we were fit for the relationship we're choosing, for instance, if we knew. So to that end, one of the reasons why I wanted for our community to listen to us talking to each other tonight is because we've chosen in this particular time for the month of July to run a workshop together, which we've called Re-entering the Community After COVID. How much would you like to talk to us about that? A lovely taster, so that we're inviting people to understand that the conversation we're having, they're actually able to have with us as a part of a month-long, 4 times on a Monday evening workshop starting on the 6th of July and each Monday night from 7 till 9, and it will of course be on Zoom. So we'll be inviting you, and you know that you use our social media. You'll see the invitation regularly between now and then. And Lynnette and I would like to talk with you now about what you might learn, what you might be attracted to come to. Re-entering the community again after COVID. Thanks, Lynnette.
Yeah, thanks. I've heard from a lot of my friends, and I might have uttered it once or twice myself, that that I'm just so ready for this to be over, that I'm ready to go back. But honestly, this has been a gorgeous, rough initiation. We were thrust into something we weren't prepared for, and we've all done pretty well. But really, we're not meant to go back. This has been this gorgeous opportunity to meet ourselves, every bit and bob of us, like that gorgeous Rumi poem, right? The house guest, all the bits that have shown up. And so what Helen and I would like to do is, let's not waste a perfectly good pandemic. Let's gather together in community and talk about bonding and belonging, and nourish our own resiliency through a lot of really gorgeous experiential journaling, some somatic movement. We're going to do lots of mindfulness, lots of discussion and sharing, because we heal in community. We need the vessel of each other. We didn't just need it when we were little and people held us. We need it now. And so, and we're re-entering community, right? A lot of us have been really a little physically cut off from physical connection. So let's come and practice together, being both embodied and in community.
So the interesting thing about, you began this piece by saying so many people have said they're ready and willing to turn up again. I find that that's absolutely true, and has been true for me. Because of my age, it has only been the last few days that I've actually been allowed back out into the community. And what interested me was I discovered I'm allowed back on Thursday, but I didn't actually begin my journey back until Monday, Sunday, when I went into my car and drove to the Mall of Emirates for the first time since the beginning of March. I watched myself while I was doing it, and I watched thinking, what does it feel like to rejoin where I would normally go when I have no shopping I need, but I'd love to go and eat there. I'd like to just be able to walk, have a really decent walk out of the heat, for instance. And I noticed straight away there were very few people. I thought, well, I know that people have been invited to go back out for quite a while now, and there were very few people. So that brings me to recognize, although I might be wanting to go out, I speak every day with people who actually find that that's the most fearful thing they can do at the moment. And I'm noticing in a lot of the social networks and the ways that people discuss this, how many people express an incredible fear of entering back into the community again. that they'd like to
Yeah.
keep themselves separate a lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
What do you
Yeah,
think
that
about
makes
that?
sense. Yeah, I really do understand that. This ha we have been undone collectively, communally, and personally by this. And um, like it, I had said, I jokingly said, let's not waste a perfectly good pandemic, but really all of it is just this gorgeous information for ourselves, right? Like if maybe we were chaffing at the bit in the beginning, like, oh, this is stupid. I want to be out. I want to go. And now we're like, oh, that's too much. I want to stay home. All of that's true and all of that's welcome. And we can tend to every single part of that. And maybe it'll change. Maybe sometimes we're like, oh, I can't wait to get out of this house. I'm just so frustrated and angry. And then when the opportunity comes, we find ourselves doing everything but leaving the house.
Yeah, isn't that
And
interesting?
it's so interesting and it's gorgeous, right? Because it shows us how we are such amazing beings on this in this huge spectrum. And this is hard. This is big, hard work. And if you think about it, it's only really been since March, since we've been in lockdown, and how quickly we adapted to it, how resilient we are as humans, that we're so used to it now, we either don't want to go out or we're ready to go out and we're fine, we're okay with the way it is. So it's all just places to be curious and to show up with tenderness for ourselves. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting how quickly it changes too, because I can think of, in the beginning, quickly gathering, thinking, oh my, what is the best way that we as a company can help our community, that we can be present? And I've noticed how we've had to change and alter it as the weeks have gone on. We were in Mindful Living workshop on Sunday night, and I noticed that several people described their experience of the last few months using these wonderful descriptives. Somebody said, oh, my life just feels like swings and roundabouts. And someone else said, mine feels like a roller coaster. And I said, it sounds as if we've all been in a fairground of these dizzying rides, the sort that I personally would never get on. I would be petrified to go on a roller coaster. That wouldn't be my thing at all. But I notice that people use that to describe the way that they've been experiencing living over the last while. That it feels as though we've shot down and come back up again and shot back down. And now we're asking, well, where are we now? So we've prepared for the lockdown and now we're being released again, and it seems very long and very short all at the same moment, doesn't it? Very turbulent for a lot of people. Are we on the way up again or are we on the way down again? Where are we? So we're going to talk about that and how we tend to the leftover emotions and the new ones that we're going to be experiencing. Yeah,
Absolutely.
How are we going to work with people in a workshop tending to trauma in this way? By helping them to connect with each other?
Yes. Helping us all to connect with each other and to connect with ourselves through, again, like some lots of journaling, some movement, discussions. We'll do little breakout groups where we can go out in smaller groups so we can have deeper, richer discussions, because there'll be fewer of us, and then we'll come back into group. And it's all going to be very, very, I love to use this word radical. This is going to be really radical, taking the time to tend to ourselves and to tend to each other. And I love the word radical because we think of it's, out marching in the streets or being crazy. But really, the root of the word radical means root. It means to go deep, to dig down and see what do you need to be nourished? What do you need to be held in this time of enormous turbulence? When you feel like one moment you're on solid ground and the next thing you know, you're on a fairground ride, a global village, and it's just pure chaos. What do you need? And that's what we're going to practice together.
So I love the fact that many of our community first arrived to us by coming to learn mindfulness in a workshop. And when we ask them, the most common reply, so we say, can you tell us why you've come to learn mindfulness? What is it that you're needing? And the most common reply is twofold. One, I really struggle with anxiety. And two, I have this voice in my mind that keeps on and on and on. I can't calm myself down. I feel as though I'm wired and I can't calm myself down. So when I recognize that the practice of mindfulness and the deeper meditations that go with it, people have been coming, asking, please, can you help? Can you teach us how to do it? Companies have asked us, corporations have asked us, can you help our people in teams understand how they can meet themselves through mindfulness and how they can help somehow or other to learn how to soothe and calm. Do you know, Lynnette, I've been waiting for people, it feels like years and years now, to come and ask, how can you help me learn to self-comfort, self-soothe without using addictions? And now people are, because of the pandemic, reaching out to understand how mindfulness can actually help them. So you said that mindfulness is the antidote to trauma. Can you help us understand a bit more clearly how that is, why that is?
Yeah. I too sought out mindfulness to be soothed. I wanted a calmer. I had lots of chatter, so I get that. And the mindfulness that we're going to practice is that as well. But actually, the mindfulness when we're talking about trauma healing and the healing of trauma is finding ways back into our own being and our own experience, not to create, if soothing comes, if calm comes, if comfort comes, and it will, then that's gorgeous. But we use mindfulness often to create just enough space in ourselves to hold whatever arises. Because trauma is rough as guts. It has lots of sharp edges. And when it arises and we've created just enough space to hold it, then we can actually look at it instead of immediately going into making a story, blaming someone else, taking a drink, taking a bottle of drinks. So it's really about spaciousness and doing it in such a titrated, compassionate way while being held in the vessel of community that it's not overwhelming. Because trauma itself was overwhelming. It was too much, too soon, too awful. To come out of it, we come very slowly and very gently, using mindfulness to create the space that we can feel what's arising, whatever it is, whatever we're calling it. You know, anxiety or anger.
Spaciousness. Yeah. Because for me, inner spaciousness is what mindfulness practice is, isn't it?
Yeah.
In my meditations in the morning, I think when I sit to meditate, what I'm doing, and I often say this to people when I'm working with them, I'm making a great big space inside of me so all sorts of other things can be added. I'm not full to the top so that I can't handle things. I'm finding a space so that I can handle what arrives and it has somewhere to sit. Yeah. People often question me about that. If you spend long periods of time in a day listening to people's really difficult traumatic stories, it must be an awful lot. And I say, well, it would be if I didn't have already an empty space from the beginning of the day, which means that there's room for other people's stories and hurts and pains to be there as well. And by the end of the day, the mindfulness practice helps make yet another space. I quite often say, if there've been a lot of traumatic people arriving during the day and a lot of sadness, I often bundle that up and take it for a walk in the evenings. And when I'm doing that, I'm thinking of the person that I was loving today and helping them to find a space in themselves. And I'm walking them. We're walking together. And loving them, releasing them in that way, we make another space for tomorrow's people. So when you think about that, in partnership and in family, when the mother learns how to make a space and the father joins her with that, then they're teaching children how to do that as well, aren't they? They're showing children. And all of it is about slowing down. Why do you think we're so frightened of slowing down? From a somatic experience, why are we so frightened to slow down?
Well, there's lots of reasons. The big ones that I have experienced and understand is culturally, this is an ascendant culture. We love to go up, 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 bigger, 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 more money, more Instagram followers, more fill in the blank, money, materials. We love people who are ascending, right? We love that rags to riches story. Nobody loves the riches to contentment, right? Like that doesn't happen. Yeah. So we're just steeped in this idea of what it should look like to be content. And the other piece of it is that when we experience things from a trauma, when we're looking at the healing through the lens of attachment and trauma, when we are little and we experience these, to us, now to the adults around us, they might not have seemed really big, but they seem extraordinary to us because we have such teeny little systems that have no experience. Our nervous systems are teeny. Our life experience is teeny. Like, I was at the mall today and there were two little kids who barely came to my knees and they were walking, and I thought that was astounding because they seemed too small. And then I thought, wow, what the world must look like to them. Imagine being knee high in a mall. Like, that alone could be a little overwhelming for a child. So, but we don't know what to do with all these feels. So we kind of tuck them away. We just put them away. But they're big because the body is small and the experience is small. So when we get older and we feel that arise and we don't realize it's a developmental thing, it's from a long time ago, it feels really overwhelming. And a lot of us have had that experience, right? That we all have probably had the experience of getting mad about something that seems mildly benign, but our reaction to it was huge and hot and big. That is why sometimes it's hard to go inside and tend to ourselves, because it feels really overwhelming when we feel the front edge of maybe a feeling or experience that just needs to burn through. But we've spent so much of our life force and our life keeping it pushed down, keeping it out of experience, and using anything we can to keep it just out of our own experience. It's kind of like holding, you might have heard this, where when you're in the pool and you have a beach ball and you're trying to hold it underwater and it's kind of bobbing up. Yeah. We're doing that unconsciously all of the time. So I think that and the fact that we're an ascendant culture. We want to we don't want to dig deep. We don't want to go underground because it doesn't seem to have a lot of value in the world that we live in, when it truly is the value of being alive, is to meet ourselves.
Yeah, and the depth of that, the digging deep, is interesting. I had a conversation with someone a couple of weeks ago. Said, I've been to see quite a few people to talk about the things that are troubling me, and I've learned how to go about this now. So it goes like this: I'm willing to talk to you so long as you don't ask me any questions at all about my family or my childhood. Yeah. I thought, how interesting. He said, you're a mindfulness teacher. We're just going to stay here in the present. But, yes, and we'll be paddling in the shallows, because the depth of anything inside of us, the width, the height and the depth of us, we hide from ourselves. Isn't that astonishing?
It's so astonishing.
And to discover that in mindfulness practice, the tenderness and the gentleness at which we approach the steps down and within, until in the end people say, I hadn't realized this is what I've been longing for my whole life. I guess your own heart has been longing for you to attend to it, to pay attention, to it. So I think another thing that I'm aware of is that word attention. How we have to learn how to pay attention to ourselves, and that most of us pay attention to anything else outside of ourselves and very little within. So do you agree that what we're going to be doing is helping people to understand how to pay attention both within and externally too, and how we can help that join together?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. That's exactly what we're going to be doing, is going deep together. And it's not a journey you have to take alone. And if there's anyone who's watching this who may have very powerful protective parts, much like your client who came and said, right, I'll talk about anything but my family, my childhood, or my feelings, right?
Yeah.
That's a beautiful piece of information, that his protector part is on point. But that protector part is actually protecting that little piece that's just underground, that's so desperate to be seen and heard and tended to. And so if you're watching this and you're like, yeah, my protector part, and you recognize, then this might be the place for you. Because it's gonna, yeah.
Quite. So the other thing is the notion that we keep talking about doing this in community against a backdrop of having been separated and socially distanced from each other. It's intriguing, isn't it? Because I know that you and I have rather enjoyed the aloneness part.
Yeah.
We're a bit birds of a feather, I realise that. I don't mind it in the least bit. But I know many people who come to talk who say they have found it simply terrifying. And the most terrifying piece for many people about the social distancing is that they have come to realise that a lot of their anxiety comes from what we would call social anxiety. The need to have to do what you're invited to take part in things, to turn up and be present. And what happened when we first began the lockdown was that the ability to do that, or even to choose it, or even to agree, was removed. So for a lot of people, safety arrived because they were let off the hook. And I've had a lot of conversations with people who actually have discovered some peacefulness and some space in the quiet, and they're worried about their social anxiety coming to the fore again. Do you think that they will be helped too by the workshop that we're going to be running in July?
Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating because the people, those of us who have some concerns around losing this, what feels like this geography of calmness, this island of peacefulness and easefulness that has arose, and the people who are like, I don't know who I am unless I am in a crowd of 40 people. I'm absolutely miserable and I hate every minute of this. These are actually just, and it's way more multifaceted than that, right? Because we're all on a spectrum. It's a whole gorgeous circus of us here. But it's kind of two sides of the same coin. And it all leads back to, how can I hold that space in myself? How can I recognize it? And now that I've recognized it, how can I protect it and hold it? Because it's very nourishing to me and I don't want to lose this, you know? And so this will be a fantastic workshop to practice and to be with the felt sense of, this experience has nourished me well. I want more of this. How can I create more of this? How can I learn the skills to create, that keep this little island that has been so easeful, right?
I'm very happy to see you all joining us. How lovely. So nice to know that our community is out there. And we'll be paddling in the shallows, because the depth of anything in conversations with adults who are revisiting the fears of childhood, and that this is what COVID has done. What do you think about that?
Yes, yes. Our attachment systems were created almost solidly before we were 3 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So when we become overwhelmed now, when we become fearful now, when we become joyous now, that attachment system that we had no charge of, right? So don't get down on yourself if your attachment system is hyper vigilant, is always on point for, right, what's going to go wrong, that's going to get me, something wrong is going to happen. This attachment system has kept us alive. It has been powerful and beautiful, and of course it's going to be on full display because it is who we are. It's our wiring. It's our wiring. So it's no surprise to me that when it happened, my first 7 weeks was basically just a complete, you know this, Helen, was a complete redo of my childhood. My first 7 weeks of this pandemic, I literally unconsciously recreated. It was fantastic and gorgeous. Not when I was in it. It was awful, and I was sad and exhausted and just collapsed practically. But the moment I noticed it, but to notice it, I had to know about it. I had to know what my attachment system was and what it looked like in action and why it happened. And it wasn't my fault. It actually is my strength, right? So yeah, it's not a surprise to me at all that you're sitting with people who, if you could kind of unzip them and look inside, you would see a little 3-year-old, a gorgeous little 3-year-old just trying to keep herself alive or himself alive. Because that's what we're wired. Biologically, we're just wired to survive. That's all it is our survival instinct.
And because of this whole pandemic, people have had to revisit things that they thought they'd long since left behind or buried that have arrived. I'm fascinated by how polarized it's been and how I'm either listening to people say their lives feel repaired and much more whole, and that their relationships have grown and thrived. Their couple is more healthy than ever. Or I'm talking to someone who is so full of fear and hypervigilant in their anxiety now and had no idea that they'd been carrying it like a load of rocks in a backpack all of this time. So from my perspective, when my greatest joy would be to be asked to teach mindfulness and meditation to the whole world, that's what I'd really like for the world to be doing. My greatest joy arising out of all of this is that the opportunities for people to visit their own humanity and understand that wholeness is being able to embrace the brokenness and recognize that we are broken and whole and that there's actually nothing wrong. All we're doing is revisiting the pieces of us that need to be patched up again from childhood, re-loved, re-rocked like a baby, brought home as it were, to ourselves. And the ability to be able to support people while they're doing that, do you not think of as the greatest privilege?
Oh, it's my life's work that I didn't realize it was my life's work until I met you, and it all came together. I've lost the use of the English language. We're all very, very smart people.
Yeah.
For almost everyone who's watching this, the majority of us are expats. So we have packed up our lives, we've moved to a new country, we have great emotional intelligence, we know how to function in multicultural societies, and yet we truly are just these gorgeous beings that need each other. And that I get to show up here and teach people and share, not even really teach, more share that everything you're doing is phenomenal and you are perfectly and gloriously whole. And the more you know about yourself, the more you can live completely embodied. With no matter what happens, you can be present for yourself, present for your beloveds. But you have to be present for you first. It's my
And
great,
the
it's a
beauty,
secret to
the
life.
absolute beauty of that is that the
Yeah,
whole of mindfulness practice sits around the word present, doesn't it? Of
absolutely.
be here. So the one thing that people have constantly pointed out to me is the discovery that I've always thought if I just made a plan, I would be safe and certain. And then along came the pandemic, and I realized that that was all just a facade. That safety is a concept that sits inside of us, a piece of the befriending of ourselves.
Yes.
And this glorious piece of time in our history gives each of us the opportunity to have a reset. Push that button and reset. Or I think my favourite metaphor is actually update the operating system.
System. Yeah. Yeah. It's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did that again today. My laptop said, please would you restart, because we've got a whole pile of things to update, and you have to switch yourself off for a little bit while you update again. And to me, that is what mindfulness practice teaches us: how to learn how to see, how to constantly update our own personal operating system, how to learn to watch with awareness, how to become people who are naturally in love with ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the questions I'm asked the most. And how can I learn to have a relationship with myself? And I think that this pandemic has helped bring so many more people toward that than ever before.
Oh,
Don't you love
absolutely.
that?
I do love that. And I love recognizing that we are in relation with ourselves. And mindfulness is this gorgeous companion that comes with us. Once we learn it, no one can take it away from us. It's always there with us. Yeah.
Yeah. I love teaching that actually it was a part of who we are. We forgot it. We were unconditioned out of it. And the reason why everyone can learn how to live mindfully is that it's really a re-remembering of who we are. It's a coming home. It's a re-remembering that I know how to do this. There isn't anyone who doesn't know how to do it.
Know how to do this.
Yeah. It's nothing new to learn. It's a regathering of the old ingredients, really. The jigsaw puzzle of life, patching everything back. So let's reiterate, Lynnette, because I know that I could sit and talk to your lovely face for the next few hours.
Yeah.
Let's recap from the beginning and say what's going to happen is that we're going to be teaching a workshop as Mindful Me. It's going to be every Monday night in July, beginning on July the 6th. So 6, 13, 20 and 27. It will, of course, be online. It'll be on Zoom. So you'll need to contact us to ask to enroll, to get the information about it, and to be given your Zoom link. Oh, yeah. We'll ask you if please you could email kirsty@mindfulme.me. And those of you who know our lovely Alfie know how to get in touch with Alfie. Any other information you need is already on the Mindful Me website, which is mindfulme.me. You know from our social media how to contact us. I would suggest, if you want to take part in this workshop and you can see how valuable it will be for you, join up as quickly as you can, because we'd love to accommodate as many people as possible. But because it's about caring, we'll be careful about the number of people who attend. And if you're enthusiastic, we'll do it again. So we'll do it for July, and if we need to, we'll do it again. At the same time, our mindfulness workshop continues to be run online, and that we offer every Tuesday evening. Every second Sunday night, you can join us for a mindful living session. So we do mindful living every second Sunday night, 2 hours, Zooming together. And I know in the next mindful living session, we're actually going to talk about anxiety. And the people who met last time requested this. Could we please talk about anxiety? And can we talk about practical tips and tools? We at Mindful Me like the how-to. We don't just talk, we like the how to. We're good at how do we do this. I think we've covered all of those steps. I'm so delighted to be able to do this, talking with you, Lynnette. In the last few minutes, is there anything in particular that you would like to say now that would just add a little bit of icing on the cake to this?
Oh, I would just encourage all of us to be so gentle with yourself. And just thank you so much for taking this time to hang out with Helen and I. And I so look forward to seeing you at any of the Mindful Me events, but I would love to see you at the workshop starting on next week. It would be gorgeous.
Gosh, is it next week already? Have we zoomed to the
next
end
week?
of
Yeah,
June
July.
already?
Isn't it July 6th?
My goodness.
I think it is.
Yeah, I think it is. It's quite astonishing, isn't it, how quickly time has gone.
It has gone so fast.
Lynnette, thank you for putting this piece of time aside and being at the guest of Mindful Me as part of our team tonight. I've enjoyed doing this with you. Have you enjoyed it too?
Oh, Helen, I will do anything to get to spend time with you. I'll even create an Instagram account and do an Instagram live. This was gorgeous. Thank you, my love. Thank you, Helen, so much. It's so nice.
Thank you for being part of all of this too. Lots of love to all of you. Thank you for being present and watching. You know that you can rewatch this again because it goes onto the IG, and you know that I will also post it on our Mindful Me YouTube account, which I've been very proudly collecting things for in a very amateur fashion. But I have to say, people are actually watching it, so I'm loving that. Lots of love, everybody. Thank you, Lynnette.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you. Bye, love.